They said I was cursed. Married for 3 days before my husband died. His younger brother handed me a letter of release, formal papers meant to free me from his family, with blood still on his hands from the battlefield. I should have left. I should have taken my freedom and run. But when I looked into his grandmother's fading eyes and his sister's tearful face, I made a choice that would chain my heart to a man too dangerous to love. 5 years I waited. 5 years I built a life. And just when I thought I could finally be free, General William Drake came home and changed everything. This is my story. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments which country you're watching from. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe. Enjoy listening. The red silk of my wedding robes had barely lost its stiffness when they wrapped Theodore Drake in white burial cloth. 3 days. I had been married to the Drake family's eldest son for exactly 3 days when fever took him from this world. 3 days of barely knowing his face, of awkward silences across the dinner table, of sleeping in separate rooms because he was too ill to even look at his new bride. I was 17 years old and I was already a widow. The Drake family estate in Willow Creek County was smaller than I'd expected. Not the grand mansion of a noble family, but a modest compound with worn wooden gates and gardens that had seen better days. The family had fallen on hard times, they said. The father dead from war injuries years ago, the mother passed during childbirth, leaving only a grandmother whose mind wandered like morning mist, a young daughter named Elena who was barely 12, and 2 sons. Or rather 1 son now. William Drake arrived 3 days after his brother's funeral, riding through the gates on a black warhorse that seemed too large, too fierce for our quiet courtyard. He dismounted in one fluid motion, his military uniform dark against the morning white that draped our household. I had never met him before. He joined the army at 15, they said, and hadn't returned home in 7 years. Now he was 22, a rising officer on the borderlands, and the last surviving male heir of the Drake family. He was also the most beautiful man I'd ever seen, tall and lean with the kind of strength that comes from swinging swords rather than carrying books. His face was all sharp angles, high cheekbones, a straight nose, a jaw that looked carved from stone. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Dark, almost black, and completely unreadable. Those eyes found me in the courtyard where I knelt in my white mourning robes. "You're the widow," he said. Not a question. "Yes, young master." I kept my head bowed as was proper. "How old are you?" 17, young master. A long silence. Then, "Come with me." He led me to the small study his brother had used, pulled out a piece of paper and a brush, and began writing. His calligraphy was harsh, angular, a soldier's hand, not a scholar's. I realized what he was doing before he finished. A letter of release. "You're young," he said, not looking up from the paper. "You barely knew my brother. There's no reason for you to be tied to this family for the rest of your life." He signed the document with a sharp flourish. "Take this, return to your family, remarry someone worthy. Consider it my brother's final gift to you." He held out the paper. I should have taken it. Any reasonable person would have taken it. Instead, I looked past him to the doorway, where Grandmother Drake stood, her cloudy eyes unfocused, her thin frame trembling. Elena peeked out from behind her, tears streaking down her young face. "The young sister-in-law is still young," I heard myself say. "And Grandmother needs someone to care for her. I'll hold on to the letter of release for now." I met William's dark eyes, surprised by my own boldness. "Second, young master, you can return to the military with peace of mind. When everyone is settled, when Elena is older and Grandmother is, when we're all settled, I'll leave then. It won't be too late." Something flickered in those black eyes. Surprise? Suspicion? "You want to stay?" His voice was flat, giving nothing away. "For now. If the young master permits." He studied me for a long moment, and I had the unsettling feeling he was seeing far more than I wanted him to. Finally, he folded the letter of release and tucked it into his uniform. "Suit yourself," he said. Then he turned and walked out, leaving me alone in the study with my heart pounding and my hands shaking. What had I just done? William left for the borderlands 2 days later. I stood at the gate with Grandmother and Elena, watching him ride away on that massive black horse, his spine straight and his gaze fixed forward. He didn't look back. "Sister Visha," Elena whispered, clutching my hand. Will second brother come home again? Of course he will, I told her, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Men went to war and didn't come back all the time. The borderlands were brutal, filled with raiders and enemy tribes. William might be skilled, but he was still mortal. Still, I had made my choice. And as the days turned into weeks, then months, then years, I set about building a life I'd never planned for. Grandmother Drake's illness worsened. Some days she knew who I was. Other days she called me by her dead daughter's name. I learned to cook her favorite dishes, to brush her hair gently before bed, to read to her from the poetry books she loved even when I wasn't sure she understood the words. Elena grew from a grieving child into a bright young girl. I saved every coin I could and enrolled her in the local academy. Scandalous for a girl of her modest station, but I didn't care. She was clever, hungry for knowledge, and I refused to let her potential rot simply because the world expected less of her. And I started selling tofu pudding. The Drake family needed income. The small stipend William sent home from his military salary wasn't enough, and our savings were dwindling. I'd learned to make tofu pudding from my mother, and it turned out I had a gift for it. Silky smooth with just the right sweetness, served warm in the morning, cold or cool in the summer heat. I set up a small stall in the county town's Market Street. At first people whispered, "A widow in the Drake family working in public? Scandalous. Improper. Shameful." But my tofu pudding was good, my prices were fair, and eventually hunger overcame propriety. By the end of the first year I had regular customers. By the end of the third year, I'd saved enough to repair the Drake estate's leaking roof. By the end of the fifth year I had something I'd never expected. A life of my own. News of William came in fragments. He'd been promoted to captain, then to commander, then to general at the unprecedented age of 26. They said he was brilliant on the battlefield, ruthless with enemies, strategic and fearless. They said he never left survivors among those who opposed him. They called him the Iron General, the Borderland Dragon, the Emperor's Dark Blade. They made him sound like a stranger, like someone I'd never met. But sometimes late at night, I'd remember those dark eyes studying me in the study. I'd remember the way he'd moved with effortless grace. I'd remember the feeling that he'd seen straight through me. And I'd wonder what he remembered of me, if he remembered me at all. Then, in the early spring of the fifth year, everything changed. His name was Thomas Chan, and he owned a small bookshop 3 stalls down from mine in the market. He was kind, patient, gentle, everything a proper scholar should be. He started buying tofu pudding every morning. Then he started lingering to talk. Then he started walking me home when the market closed, carrying my empty pots and making me laugh with his terrible poetry. "Visha," he said one day, his ears turning red. "I know your circumstances are complicated. I know you're still technically part of the Drake family, but I'd like to court you, properly, with intentions of marriage." I should have said no immediately. Should have reminded him that I was still wearing a widow's status, that I was bound by duty to the Drake household, that it wasn't appropriate. Instead I said, "Let me think about it." Because the truth was, I was 22 years old and I'd never been courted. I'd never had a man look at me with tenderness, never had someone want to know my thoughts and opinions, never imagined a future that included my own happiness. Thomas offered me something I'd given up hope of having, a normal life. Over the next few weeks, he was persistent but respectful. He brought flowers for grandmother, books for Elena, and sweet buns for me. He talked about opening a second bookshop, about building a life together, about how I could keep selling my tofu pudding if I wished, how we could care for my Drake family members together. "I know they're not your blood family," he said, "but I can see you love them. I'd never ask you to abandon them, Visha. We can make it work." He was perfect, kind, understanding, patient. So why did I feel like I was betraying something every time he smiled at me? Elena noticed first. "Sister Visha, do you like Scholar Chan?" she asked one evening, her teenage wisdom cutting straight to the heart of things. "He's a good man," I said carefully. "But do you love him?" I didn't know how to answer that. What was love, anyway? Theodore Drake had been my husband for 3 days, and I'd felt nothing but polite distance. Thomas Chan had been courting me for weeks, and I felt comfortable, safe. Wasn't that enough? "Sister," Elena said quietly, Second brother is coming home next week. For the spring festival. You should tell him about Scholar Chun. My stomach dropped. William is coming home? You didn't know? He sent a letter last month. He's earned leave finally. He'll be here for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. William Drake would be in this house for 3 weeks, and I'd have to tell him I wanted to marry another man. I told myself it would be fine. He'd given me that letter of release 5 years ago. He'd want me to move on, to be happy. He probably barely remembered me. But my hand shook as I thought about the letter of release William still held, and I couldn't quite convince myself I was only nervous about the practicalities. William Drake came home on the first day of spring and he'd changed. Or rather, he'd become more of what he always was. Taller, broader in the shoulders, with new scars cutting across his hands and one thin line along his jaw. His hair was longer, tied back with a leather cord. His uniform was black and severe, marked with the insignia of his rank. But it was his presence that had transformed. He moved through the courtyard like a predator, all coiled power and dangerous grace. When his eyes swept across the gathered household, I felt the weight of them like a physical touch. Those eyes found me, lingered for a moment that stretched too long, then moved on. Grandmother, he said, his voice deeper than I remembered. You look well. William, is that you? Grandmother's face lit up with rare lucidity. My boy, you've come home. I'm home, he confirmed, embracing her gently. Then he turned to Elena, and something in his severe face softened. Little flower. You've grown. Second brother. Elena threw herself at him, and he caught her easily, lifting her off her feet. You're finally back. Wait until you see. I can read poetry now. And Sister Visha enrolled me in the academy, and I'm learning calligraphy and… Slow down, he said, but there was warmth in his tone I'd never heard before. He set her down, then looked at me over her head. Sister-in-law. Thank you for taking care of them. Sister-in-law. The formal address felt wrong, somehow distant. It was no trouble, General, I replied, keeping my voice even. Something flickered in his eyes at the title. Just William. I'm home now. The first 2 days passed in a blur of family dinners and Elena's excited chatter. William was different with them than I'd expected. Patient with grandmother's confusion, indulgent with Elena's enthusiasm. He brought gifts. Medicines for grandmother, books for Elena, and for me a bolt of fine silk in deep blue. I heard you've been selling tofu pudding, he said when he presented it. This is unsuitable for market wear, but perhaps for festivals. It's too fine, I protested. I couldn't accept. You've kept my family alive for 5 years, he cut me off. It's hardly enough. Take it. On the 3rd day I realized I had to tell him about Thomas. I found William in the practice yard behind the estate, running through sword forms. He moved like water, like death, each strike precise and lethal. Sweat dampened his hair and shirt, and I found myself staring at the play of muscles beneath the thin fabric. I cleared my throat. He spun sword raised, then lowered it when he saw me. Sister-in-law, do you need something? I need to speak with you. About a personal matter. He sheathed his sword and grabbed a towel, wiping his face. Go ahead. This was harder than I'd anticipated. There's a scholar in town, Thomas Chun. He's asked to court me, with intentions of marriage. William went very still. Has he? He's a good man. Kind. He owns a bookshop, and he said that after we marry, we can still care for grandmother and Elena. I can continue my business and… You're considering this? His voice was flat. Yes. I mean, I wanted to discuss it with you first, since you hold the letter of release, but… What do you know about this scholar? The question caught me off guard. He's reputable. Well-educated. His family background? His finances? His character references? William, he's a scholar, not a military officer. I don't need his battle record. You need to know who he is before you bind your life to his. William stepped closer, and I resisted the urge to step back. Have you verified his claims? Checked his reputation? Spoken to his previous customers or students? It's not. This isn't a military campaign. Marriage is more permanent than war, sister-in-law. Another step closer. In war you can retreat. In marriage you're bound until death. So yes, you should approach it with the same caution you'd use before a battle. He was too close now. I could smell the clean scent of his sweat, see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, feel the heat radiating from his body. Scholar Chen is a good man, I said firmly. And I'm 22 years old. I've been a widow for 5 years. I deserve a chance at a normal life, at happiness. And you think this scholar can give you that? Yes. He's kind, he's gentle, he's boring. I blinked. Excuse me. You heard me. He's boring. Safe. Predictable. William tilted his head, studying me with those unsettling eyes. Is that really what you want, Visha? Safety. It was the first time he'd used my given name. The sound of it in his deep voice did something strange to my pulse. Safety is underrated, I managed. Is it? He reached out, and I froze as his fingers caught a strand of hair that had escaped my bun. He tucked it behind my ear, the gesture oddly intimate. You've run a business for 5 years. Negotiated with suppliers, handled difficult customers, managed household finances. You enrolled Elena in the academy despite the gossip. You've kept this family together through sheer determination. His thumb brushed my cheek. Does that sound like a woman who craves safety? I couldn't breathe. William. Don't marry him, Visha. That's not your decision to make. Then let me make a different proposal. His hand slid to cup my jaw, tilting my face up. Give me 2 weeks. Let me show you what alternative exists. If, at the end of that time, you still want to marry your boring scholar, I'll hand you the letter of release and pay for your wedding myself. What alternative? I whispered. He smiled, and it was the most dangerous thing I'd ever seen. Me. I should have said no. Should have stepped back, maintained propriety, reminded him of our positions. Instead I said, "You're not serious." "I'm very serious." He hadn't moved his hand from my face. "I've thought about little else for 5 years. You've been at war for 5 years. War gives a man time to think, time to regret, time to realize what he should have done differently." His thumb traced my lower lip and I shivered. "I should have kissed you that first day. In the study. When you looked at me with those brave eyes and refused to take the letter of release. I was 17. And I was 22 and too honorable for my own good. I convinced myself you deserved better than a soldier with no prospects, that you should be free to find happiness elsewhere. So I left. And for 5 years I told myself I was doing the right thing." His eyes darkened. "Then Elena's letter arrived, mentioning a scholar who brought you flowers. And I realized I'm not nearly as honorable as I thought. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. This is insane. We barely know each other. Then let me know you. 2 weeks, Visha. That's all I ask. And if I say no?" His hand dropped away, and I immediately missed the warmth. "Then I'll support your decision. But I think you're curious. I think you want to know what this could be." He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "I think you've wondered just like I have." He was right, damn him. I had wondered. Late at night, alone in my room, I'd wondered what it would be like if William Drake saw me as something other than his brother's widow, his household's caretaker. 2 weeks, I heard myself say. But you have to tell Elena and grandmother. I won't have them thinking poorly of me. Agreed. He straightened, all business suddenly. We'll tell them tonight at dinner. Tonight. Why wait? That dangerous smile again. Unless you've changed your mind already? I haven't changed my mind. This is highly irregular. Most worthwhile things are. He picked up his sword. I need to finish training. But Visha? Fair warning. What? I fight to win. Always. And I've wanted you for 5 years. His eyes locked on mine. Your scholar doesn't stand a chance. He left me standing in the practice yard, my face flushed and my mind spinning. What had I just agreed to? Dinner that night was surreal. You want to what? Elena shrieked, her chopsticks clattering to the table. Court Visha, William repeated calmly, as if this was a perfectly normal announcement. Properly. With intentions of marriage. If she'll have me. Grandmother, in one of her clearer moments, smiled serenely. About time. I've been waiting for this for years. Grandmother. I sputtered. You can't have been, we've barely interacted. You think I'm so senile I don't notice how my grandson looks at you? She reached across to pat my hand. He came home for 3 days 5 years ago, gave you that letter of release, and spent the entire time watching you like a hawk watches a rabbit. Then he left and has been writing letters asking about you ever since. I turned to William. You've been writing about me? I asked about the household, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. You're part of the household. He asked specifically about you, Elena supplied helpfully. What you were doing, how you were managing, if anyone was courting you. Elena, William warned. And he sent extra money whenever you mentioned needing anything, and that silk he brought wasn't from a general collection. He specifically commissioned it in your favorite color. How do you know my favorite color? I demanded. William shrugged. I pay attention. This is insane, I said again. We can't just, there are proprieties, social expectations, family obligations. Visha, grandmother interrupted gently. My grandson is a general now. A war hero. He has the emperor's favor and his own fortune. There's no social impropriety he can't overcome with those credentials. She squeezed my hand. The question isn't whether it's proper. The question is whether you want to. Did I want to? Looking at William across the table. This fierce, dangerous, surprisingly thoughtful man who'd apparently been pining for me for 5 years. I realized I didn't know. But I wanted to find out. 2 weeks, I said. As agreed. Then I'll make my decision. William nodded, satisfaction in his eyes. 2 weeks. Elena clapped her hands together. This is the most romantic thing ever. It's like the opera stories. The general and the widow. Elena, I groaned. I'm helping. Second brother, you should bring her flowers. And write poetry. Scholar Chun writes poetry. I don't write poetry, William said flatly. I'm a soldier, not a scholar. Then what's your courtship strategy? Elena demanded. He looked directly at me, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. Honesty. Over the next 3 days, William pursued me with the same single-minded intensity he apparently brought to military campaigns. He showed up at my tofu stall in the market, ignoring the whispers and stares from townsfolk who recognized the famous general. He helped me carry supplies, scared away a customer who tried to haggle too aggressively, and bought 3 bowls of tofu pudding despite claiming he didn't like sweets. It's good, he said, watching me over the rim of his bowl. You're skilled. It's just tofu pudding. It's not just anything. You built a business from nothing. That takes courage. Determination. He set down his bowl. When I'm at war planning strategy, I ask myself, what would be the bold move? The unexpected approach? The one everyone says is too risky but might actually work. He leaned closer. You made that kind of move 5 years ago, refusing the letter of release. I respected it then. I respect you now. Thomas Chun appeared while William was there, carrying flowers. He stopped short when he saw the general, his face paling. Scholar Chun, I said awkwardly. Good morning. Lady Visha. His eyes darted between us. I heard the general had returned. I didn't realize you were acquainted. The general is my brother-in-law, I explained. He's visiting family. More than visiting, William said coolly. I'm courting her. The flowers in Thomas's hand drooped. I see. Lady Visha, is this true? I wanted to snap at William for his bluntness, but lying would be worse. Scholar Chun, I'm sorry. I should have sent word. The general and I have. There's a history. I need to sort out my feelings before I can commit to anyone. Thomas looked between us again, and something resigned settled over his features. I understand. He's a general. A war hero. I'm just a scholar who sells books. He offered a sad smile. I hope you find happiness, Lady Visha. Truly. He set the flowers down on my stall and walked away. I rounded on William. That was cruel. You didn't have to embarrass him like that. Would you have preferred I lied? Let him continue courting you while I did the same. I would have preferred you showed some tact. I'm a soldier. We value directness over tact. He picked up the flowers Thomas had left, studied them, then handed them to a passing child. Besides, if he truly cared for you, he would have fought for you. The fact that he walked away so easily tells you everything you need to know. Not everyone solves problems with fighting. No. But everyone should be willing to fight for what matters to them. His eyes locked on mine. And you matter, Visha. More than I think you realize. On the 4th day, William brought me to a hilltop outside town, where we could see the entire valley spread below. I used to come here as a boy, he said, when my father was dying and the family was falling apart, and I felt like everything was crushing me. I'd sit here and look at how big the world was, and it made my problems feel smaller. Is that supposed to be comforting? I asked. No. It's supposed to be honest. He sat on the grass, patted the spot beside him. I promised you honesty, remember? I sat, keeping a careful distance between us. So be honest. Why do you want to marry me? Really? He was quiet for a long moment. You want the practical answer or the real one? Both. Practically, you're capable, intelligent, good with my family, and you've proven you can manage hardship without breaking. Any man would be lucky to have you as a wife. Romantic, I said dryly. You asked for honesty. Now do you want the real reason? Yes. He turned to face me fully. Because when I look at you, I see courage. Not the kind that comes from not being afraid, but the kind that comes from being terrified and doing the hard thing anyway. You were 17 and freshly widowed, and you chose to stay in a declining household with a sick old woman and a grieving child because you saw people who needed help. His hand found mine in the grass. That's the kind of person I want beside me. Not because you're pretty, though you are. Not because you're convenient, though you'd make my family happy. But because you're strong in the ways that matter. My throat tightened. I'm not that strong. I was scared every day. I still am. That's my point. Bravery isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway. He squeezed my hand. Do you know what terrifies me, Visha? The battlefield doesn't. Enemy swords don't. Death doesn't. But the thought of you marrying that scholar and me spending the rest of my life wondering what if? That terrifies me. William. I'm not good with words. I can't write poetry or make grand romantic speeches. But I can promise you this. If you choose me, I will protect you, provide for you, and respect you until my last breath. I'll support your business, your independence, whatever you want to pursue. I'll never cage you or diminish you. His thumb traced circles on my palm. And I'll spend every day trying to earn the courage you showed 5 years ago when you decided to stay. I couldn't speak, couldn't think, could only feel the warmth of his hand and the sincerity in his eyes. You don't have to answer now, he said quietly. We still have days left. But I needed you to know why I'm fighting for this. For us. On the 7th day, everything changed. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when William found me. The house was quiet, grandmother napping, Elena at a friend's house. Visha. I turned, and something in his expression made my pulse race. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But we need to talk. He moved closer, backing me toward the counter. I've been patient. Given you space. Let you think. That was the agreement, I said, my voice unsteady. The agreement was 2 weeks. We're halfway through. He planted his hands on the counter on either side of me, caging me in. And I need to know, is any of this working? Do you feel anything for me? Or am I wasting my time? William, because if this is hopeless, tell me now. I'll back off, give you the letter of release, let you marry your scholar. But if there's any chance, any possibility that you could want this too, then I need to know. It's complicated. It's not complicated. Either you feel something or you don't. His face was inches from mine. Do you think about me? When you're falling asleep at night, do you wonder what it would be like? When I stand too close, does your heart race? When I look at you, do you feel it too? Yes, I whispered. Yes, damn you, yes. Something blazing entered his eyes. Then why are you fighting this? Because I'm scared. Because you're a general who fights wars and leaves enemies dead. And I'm a tofu seller who's terrified of being hurt again. Because you could die on some battlefield and I'd be alone. Because you're intense and dangerous and everything I shouldn't want. He kissed me. One moment he was staring at me with those burning eyes, and the next his mouth was on mine, fierce and hungry and nothing like the chaste kisses I'd imagined. His hands came up to frame my face, tilting my head to deepen the kiss, and I made a sound I didn't recognize as he pulled me flush against him. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "Listen to me," he said, his voice rough. "I can't promise I won't die. I'm a soldier, that risk exists. But I can promise that every day I'm alive, I'll come home to you. I can promise that you'll never wonder if I care, never doubt your importance to me. I can promise passion and partnership and a life that's anything but boring. William. And as for being scared of being hurt, I'm terrified too. Do you think it doesn't scare me, caring this much about someone? Knowing that losing you would destroy me in ways no battlefield could." He rested his forehead against mine. "We're both scared. But I'd rather be scared together than safe and alone." I kissed him this time, rising on my toes to close the distance between us. He made a sound low in his throat and lifted me effortlessly, setting me on the counter behind me. I wrapped my legs around his waist and he groaned, his kisses moving to my jaw, my neck, the sensitive spot below my ear. "Visha," he breathed against my skin. "Tell me you want this. Tell me I'm not alone in this madness." "You're not alone," I gasped. "You've never been alone. I've been half in love with you since that day in the study when you tried to set me free." He pulled back to look at me, his eyes dark with desire and something deeper. "Only half. I was trying to be sensible. And now I'm done being sensible." I cupped his face in my hands. "Court me, William Drake. Properly. Show me everything I've been missing." He smiled, a real smile, not the dangerous warrior's smirk but something warm and genuine. "Is that a yes?" "It's a convince me over the next 7 days." I kissed him again, softer this time. "Think you can manage that, General?" "I fight to win," he murmured against my lips. "Always." The next 7 days were a revelation. William courted me with an intensity that made Thomas Chen's gentle attention seem like a pale shadow. He brought me rare spices for my tofu pudding, consulted me on household decisions, and sparred with me verbally until I learned to give as good as I got. "You're enjoying this too much," I accused one afternoon when he deliberately provoked me into an argument just to watch me fight back. "I am," he agreed shamelessly. "You're beautiful when you're angry. You're also beautiful when you're calm, happy, focused, or sleeping, but angry has a special appeal. You've watched me sleep? I may have checked on you once or twice when insomnia kept me awake. Sue me. That's creepy, William. Then consider me creepy. I'm also hopelessly besotted with you if that helps." It did help, more than I wanted to admit. He took me to meet his soldiers at the training ground, introduced me as the woman who kept my family alive while I was playing war, and watched with barely concealed amusement as hardened warriors bowed respectfully to the tofu pudding seller. "They're terrified of you," I marveled. "They should be. I'm their commanding officer." He laced his fingers through mine, not caring who saw. "But they should respect you more. You're fiercer than any of them. I sell tofu, William. You negotiated with suppliers, managed finances, and built a business in a society that tells women to be silent and subservient. That takes more courage than swinging a sword." He was impossible, infuriating, and utterly sincere. And I was completely in love with him. On the final day of our 2 weeks, William took me back to the hilltop where we'd talked. This time he brought wine and food, and we watched the sun set over the valley. "Decision time," he said quietly. "Tell me what you've decided, Visha." I took a breath. "I have conditions." His eyes gleamed. "Name them." "First, I keep my business. I'm not giving up my independence." "Agreed. I'll even help expand it if you want." "Second, Elena finishes her education. All of it. And if she wants to pursue something unconventional, we support her." "Absolutely." "Third, when you're at war you write to me. Regularly. I won't sit at home wondering if you're alive or dead. I'll write every chance I get. Fourth, if we have children, you don't disappear into your military career. You're present. You're involved. I want nothing more. And fifth," I met his eyes, "you never ever hold back with me. No gentle treatment because I'm your wife. No protecting me from difficult truths. We're partners or we're nothing." He pulled me into his lap, his arms coming around me. You want honesty? Truth? The full weight of who I am? Yes. Then know this. I'm not an easy man to love. I have nightmares from the battlefield. I'm controlling when I'm scared. I solve problems with violence more often than I should. I'll probably drive you crazy with my intensity and my need to protect you even when you don't need protecting. I know. And I'll love you so fiercely it'll probably terrify both of us. I'll fight for you, stand beside you, and burn down anyone who threatens you. I'll be possessive and demanding and completely insufferable. I know that too. And you still want this? I kissed him, pouring 5 years of longing and 2 weeks of discovery into it. When I pulled back, I was breathless and certain. I still want this. I want you. All of you. He held me like I was something precious, his face buried in my hair. The letter of release is back in the study where I left it 5 years ago. Should I burn it or should you? I'll burn it. I want to watch it turn to ash. My fierce wife. He kissed my temple. When do you want to marry? I have 3 more weeks before I return to the borderlands, but we can arrange something quickly. 3 weeks is fine. I want Elena to help plan it. And grandmother to be present. And I want to do this properly, not rush it. 3 weeks then. He tipped my face up. And Visha? Thank you. For what? For not taking that letter of release 5 years ago. For being brave enough to stay. For giving me a second chance. His thumb brushed my cheek. For seeing past the war hero to the man underneath. The war hero is impressive, but the man underneath is who I fell in love with. We stayed on that hilltop until the stars came out, making plans and promises, and I thought about the girl I'd been 5 years ago. 17, widowed, terrified, and somehow brave enough to refuse freedom because she saw a family that needed help. That girl had saved us all. 3 years later, the tofu pudding shop had expanded to 3 locations across the county. Elena was attending the provincial academy, studying literature and making her brother worry with her progressive ideas about women's education. Grandmother had passed peacefully in her sleep 6 months ago, with all of us at her bedside. And I was 7 months pregnant with our first child. It had taken 3 years of hoping, waiting, and finally accepting that perhaps children weren't in our future. Then, just when we'd made peace with it, this little miracle announced itself with morning sickness and undeniable kicks. William had been promoted to High General, which meant more responsibility but also more freedom to choose his assignments. He'd turned down 2 posts that would have taken him far from home, accepting a regional command that kept him within 3 days' ride. The Emperor isn't pleased, he told me when he made the decision. But I don't care. My family is here. My life is here. You'll regret it, I'd warned. You're ambitious. You always have been. I am ambitious, he said easily. Ambitious to see my child grow up. Ambitious to wake next to my wife for more than a few months a year. Ambitious to build the life I want, not the one others expect. He placed his hand on my swollen belly. This is my priority now. Everything else is secondary. Now he was home on leave, helping me manage the shops while I moved at the slow, awkward pace of late pregnancy. He'd scared off 2 suppliers who tried to cheat me, charmed 3 new restaurant supply agreements, and generally terrified everyone while making me laugh. You're going to give birth to a tiny terror, Elena said, watching him negotiate with a merchant who'd foolishly tried to raise prices on us. That baby is going to be just like him. God's help us all, I said, laughing. Our child doesn't stand a chance of being ordinary, William said fondly. No, I said, lacing my fingers through his. But our child will have parents who chose love over duty, courage over safety, and truth over convenience. That's not a bad start. It's a perfect start, he said. That night, as we lay in bed with William's hand resting on my belly, feeling the baby kick, I thought about that day in the study 5 years ago. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd taken the letter of release? I asked. He was quiet for a moment. Yes, I think about it sometimes. And I think I would have spent my whole life regretting it, wondering about you, comparing every woman I met to the brave widow who refused to be set free. He kissed my shoulder. I'm glad I never had to find out. Me too. Though I still maintain you should have agreed to marry me immediately instead of making me work for it. I laughed softly. Where's the fun in that? Besides, you said you fight to win. I had to make it a worthy battle. Oh, it was worthy, he said. His hand splayed protectively over my belly. Best victory of my life. The baby kicked hard, and we both smiled in the darkness. And for the first time, I let myself believe it. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories every day. Thanks for watching.